Do I have your attention, boy? You're about to see something wonderful.
What is up, all you ghosts and ghouls? You are tuned back into the Halloween Horror Pod, of course, an extension of the much-beloved Halloween Horror Hour TV show, which you can see on Tubi, Plex, the Roku channel, and, of course, on YouTube. We are back, continuing to ascend the mountain of greatness. And I think we should just get into it because it's time to punch some boulders and suplex some zombies by the shoulders because we're back for part 2 on our series of, gentlemen, 3, 2, 1, Resident
Evil.
We'll get it for part 3.
Maybe
It's fun to try. I'm super stoked to talk about this. This collection of games we're going to talk about today are so different and wild. In our part 1 of Resident Evil, we of course covered the Resident Evil 1 through 4. And in those games, we see the first 2 iterations of what I describe as the 3 styles of Resident Evil. The first being the classic, kind of fixed camera, big interconnective environment, lots of puzzle solving, etc. And the second being what was introduced in Resident Evil 4, which was the over-the-shoulder, third-person, action-heavy experience. And, you know, there's still, there's a lot of interconnected vibes that go through all of them, the way they do the characters and the nonsensical plot and everything, and we can talk about that. But in this episode, we're going to see how the gameplay in 4 hit its apex of ridiculousness when we talk about 6. And then we're going to see a complete transformation into the third style of Resident Evil that is introduced with Ethan Winters in Resident Evil 7, which is a pinnacle of the horror genre, and I'm so excited to talk about it. So before we dive into it, how are you guys feeling about our wild collection of Resident Evil today when we talk about 5 through 8? Tony, can you kick us off?
Yeah. Oh man, the quality shifts. Like, I feel like 5. Like, you know, we'll go into deeper like on that quality shift, but it's like we've like hit one path from 4, and then went further off the road until there's like a hard course correction, and then they're kind of finding that balance again going forward.
It's like hitting that part of the road where it makes your tires shake and you realize you fell asleep at the wheel is kind of what we get for a second. But but then continuing past what I'm pretty sure you're talking about, how do you feel about as we go into 7 and 8?
Oh, I adored the modern like trilogy, as you'd say.
7, 8, and 9. Yeah.
It took me a little while to get to them, but like I played the remakes and 7 and 8 like all like over a course of a couple months, and then 4 came out, and then now 9. So
well, excellent. Will, I would love to hear your take because you were telling me some things before we recorded. I feel like you're ready to just unload on this, so let me know your feelings on talking about 5 through 8 of Resident Evil.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me again. It's a genuine pleasure. Resident Evil 5 feels like it's where the game started to suffer a bit of an identity crisis because where they shifted into 4's behind-the-back perspective and felt more action-oriented, the pacing was a lot faster, the character felt less helpless because they had precision aim capability, and playing as Leon Kennedy, the man of men. They had all kinds of fighting capabilities, including melee combat, an unbreakable knife. Now that I think about it, was a thing back in the older games, but the main thing is, it felt like 5 tried to fully lean into the action, but they sort of neglected the horror in terms of atmosphere and scenario, but they still kept with the tragedy and apocalypse scenario. But it just wasn't quite what Resident Evil fans had come to love about the series over the years. They wanted the fear, they wanted the tension, and they wanted the monsters running around everywhere, and well, they got 2 out of 3, but it just wasn't the same. That said, I will say Resident Evil 5 is a fantastic action game on its own. As for the others, 6, the best thing I can think to describe it, Identity Crisis. It feels like it's trying to be a horror, action, and survival game all at the same time, but in 3 different parts.
Well, I think that's very well said, and I'm excited to get to it. And please, Tony.
I was gonna say, 100% agree. And I couldn't remember much from 6. I feel like I blocked it out, and I played a little bit today just to remind myself how I felt about it a little bit more. And just playing the tutorial, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember what I kind of hated about this game. Every fucking couple of seconds, quick time event, and the combat felt really like a hard shift to more arcadey.
I think arcadey is a great way to put it.
Yeah. So, yep.
Getting back to opinions on the games, I'll just go through this real quick. Resident Evil 7, that game scared the living crap out of me.
Oh, we're going to talk about that.
Times,
we're going to talk about that, don't you worry.
Excellently done. And then 8, that was such a tone shift, and I love it. It was like Resident Evil meets Van Helsing.
So let's just start with Resident Evil 5. Came out in 2009. The game was directed by Yasuhiro Ampo and Kenichi Ueda. I'm pretty sure I got those right. And produced by Jun Takeuchi. It introduced the co-op, which is mandatory, which will continue into 6. And by that, I mean you can still play it single player, but you're no longer a lone wolf out there for the next 2 games here. You're going to be paired with somebody, except if you're Ada. We'll get to there. And it also included split-screen gameplay, which I very much do appreciate. As much as I didn't love the co-op, I just wanted to make a shout-out to when games had split-screen, and I wish more did it. And now, I don't know, do you guys agree with that? Can we just give some love to split-screen for a second?
Yeah, I can appreciate split-screen, especially adventure-y vibes.
Yeah.
Split screen has a unique appeal to it these days, especially when we're seeing games like, if you haven't tried them, I recommend giving It Takes Two and A Way Out a shot if you're a fan of those classic split screen genres, especially considering that if one party owns the game, then the guest can play with the free version. And yeah, it just takes you back to the nostalgia trip of you have half your screen, but you've also got a friend sitting right next to you, and you can sort of use each other's screens to get an idea, and that's sort of like a cheaty way you could have found your enemies in GoldenEye's 4-player competitive.
Oh, the great
basically birthed the genre.
Not to make a pun, but those were the golden days of split screen on the Nintendo 64. Perfect Dark, GoldenEye, Mario Kart. You know, that was a wonderful system for that.
It was a different era.
So Resident Evil 5, besides the new setting in Africa and the sort of mandatory co-op focused gameplay, it also introduces us to one of the most forgettable characters. And I'm going to bring up the most forgettable character, in my opinion, in Resident Evil when we get to 6. But Shiva is not making anybody's all-time list. In my opinion, she's a part of the game. And I made a list here, and I want to know if I'm missing anybody. I mentioned in our first episode a list, if there was a Final Fantasy X2 style Resident Evil that was just all the Resident Evil ladies. I want to read this list that I've compiled to you, and I want to know if I'm missing anybody here. Jill, Claire, Rebecca, Helena, Sherry, Grace, Ashley, Alyssa, Mia, Shiva, Zoe, and Lady Dimitrescu. Dimitrescu, is that how you say it? Okay.
Yes.
I thought I nailed it. Whatever. So, is there anybody I'm missing from that list on the top of your guys' head before we continue on 5?
You mentioned Mia. Was that the young girl from, I think, South America in the rail shooter games?
No, you know what? See, okay, so this is a good opportunity for me to say that we made a little shift in our plans for our Part 3. In Part 3, we're going to just cover the offshoots. The remakes are going to be part of it, but we had such a good conversation about the original Resident Evils. All we can say is that they made them so good for the remakes, and part of that is going to be covering the rail shooters. No, Mia is the woman in 7, the one you're there to rescue.
Oh yeah, the wife.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
The one that, Chris, yeah. Anyway, we'll get there. Tony, I'd like to know your experience with 5, because I got it day 1. Pretty much every title I'm going to name here, I got the day it released. So what was your experience?
Yeah, same. I even when I didn't get around to playing them every Resident Evil, I've like grabbed like day one since I had money to do that with. Resident Evil 5, I remember I went with a group of friends for the midnight release at Game Crazy, which, if you don't know what Game Crazy was, it was part of Hollywood Video. They were like a connected company. They had their little stores inside the stores. They were great. They went down with the ship, but that aside.
They never made it to Alaska, so I know Will and I are super familiar. But continue, please.
Yeah, so I went there with a group of friends for the midnight release. I was in line, and the funniest point was the guy upsold me because I was picking up the game. He's like, "Hey, do you want this limited edition strategy guide? It's like a hardback, nice cover, everything." I was like, "I don't know." He's like, "It's the last one." I was like, "Well, now I do."
Well, buddy, I get that he got you, but man, now I kind of want it. Even though you don't need a strategy guide for the game, I love me a hardcover guide, man. I love just having it on the shelf.
Just as a collector, I was like, man, I don't know, extra money. And then when he said it was the last one, I was like, yeah. And the guy behind me was like, God damn it! I was like, oh, my bad. I'm still buying it. But yeah, so that memory started it. But then I remember I had a friend that was staying with us at the time as a teenager in my senior year of high school, and we ended up skipping school to play that game, and we like mastered it. It was a ton of fun with a good friend to play couch
so
co-op.
Funny. I used to skip school to play Burnout Paradise with my friend of all things. But please continue.
Yeah. Well, and we got the 100%. We figured out how to get the infinite rocket launcher, and so we rushed and did that, and then that just added a whole other element of fun. I remember the scene with Wesker when he's like mutated and walking at you, and you're just supposed to run away. If you could unload on him with the infinite rocket and kill him and completely skip his final phase.
Yeah, that's good times, man. And that's really cool. You got to play a co-op. I never got to do co-op on any of these. Will, it sounds like you had an extensive experience doing these titles in co-op. Is that correct?
Right. So I first picked up Resident Evil 5 well after it had come out. I got it on discount, and I had no regrets. I started playing the game shoulder to shoulder with the AI version of Sheva, and as I progressed through the game, I got to a point in the story where it unlocked the secret level Lost in Nightmares, and right there in the menu it said 2-player. I called my roommate, Fantasine, over at the time, and asked her if she was interested in taking this for a spin. She was, and we finished the scenario in pretty good time, but then we tried to figure out, is there a way to play the full game in co-op? And, well, plug in a second controller, hit the start button old school style, and that was all she wrote. Next thing we know, we're restarting the entire campaign, no regrets, and playing shoulder to shoulder through the entire game. And we tore it up. We got the Platinum Trophy on Resident Evil 5, and the moment we found out Resident Evil 6 came out, we pre-ordered 2 copies. We both got it, and we ripped through that game like a pair of rabid hyenas.
I think that we all kind of agreed it maybe was a little weird for Resident Evil. So, besides how much fun we had playing it with someone else, again, starting with you, Tony, how did you feel about the title itself as a product?
It definitely felt like a step back from like what they had built with Resident Evil 4.
Yeah.
And Resident Evil 4 was as we talked about, was quite a departure from the like focus on survival horror with puzzles and everything. Like there was some, but it was pushing towards that action, and it felt so like I did have my gripes as a fan of the horror element that it was more actiony, but it was a serviceable action co-op game, but it did feel like they were losing the plot with Resident Evil.
I think you nailed it on the head. But the game was still, that's the introduction of quick time events, which will just only get amplified here coming soon. Yeah. And you know what? I'm not one to shirk quick time events. I mean, I loved Shenmue. I love me a good quick time event action scene. I love cutscenes. I always have. But yeah, if I'm looking for a Resident Evil, it was starting to feel wonky. Will, what was your impression?
I liked Resident Evil 5 as a whole. Like, it clearly wasn't an action horror game or a survival horror game by any stretch.
It was an action game with a capital A.
Oh, yes. But here's the thing. When you play Resident Evil, you're not always there for the fear. You're there to shoot things. You're there to get a shotgun, get every shell you can carry, and leave nothing but a trail of chili con carne in your wake. You know what?
In those
I
titles,
enjoyed it.
I don't agree that that's what you play Resident Evil for, which is part of the issue for me.
Yes, but the classic Resident Evils had their own charm. But, like I said, sometimes. And in this case, that game did it extremely well. Resident Evil is a survival horror game, and I am so glad it found its roots again later, but to its own credit, Resident Evil 5 was fun, and that's important.
Well, and you know what? And I agree. And I eventually, once you got into the gameplay, you got later in the game, you got your arsenal built up, and the enemies start coming more and more. I remember that feeling back on like the PS3 or whatever I was playing it on, when you were switching weapons and reloading and checking your arsenal, getting everything ready, and then taking out rooms of dudes. It felt great. Like as an action game, it's fantastic. But I think it's very fair to say that this is when Resident Evil starts to lose the plot, and then they pick the plot up and they friggin' Tom Brady it across the field with Resident Evil 6 coming out in 2012, directed by, and this is going to be a fun one for me to try out, I should have tried these before. Hang on. Ichiro Sasaki, and produced by, here's another fun one, produced by Hiroyuki Kobayashi. I'm trying here, guys. This thing is just ridiculous, and I think this is going to be a lot of fun to talk about. So I think I can even just, whatever the plot is, there's a C virus now, the world's going nuts, and everyone's an action star. So I was there again, day one. I never finished this game because when I picked it up and started playing it, I was so disappointed so fast that I put it down and I didn't pick it up again for 14 years until I picked it up in preparation for this episode. Beat Leon's campaign, got halfway through Chris's, just said, I'm all right, I get it. So I would love to hear your guys' impression on Resident Evil 6. Tony, kick us off.
Oh, man, the demo had me sold. I remember
I never touched the demo.
I think it you played individual the beginning chapter of each character or something, because I remember doing the school with Leon, and I was like, oh man, so each campaign is gonna have its different theme. Like Leon feels like it's gonna be more classic horror game, and then I will
give some praise. I'll give some praise, but please continue. There is some good things to say about this game, but please go on.
Which playing it for my vague memories that I've blocked out, I feel like they did kind of do that, but I know the interconnected stories were a little awkward, and there wasn't any benefit really to playing from the other seeing the scenes from the other characters.
Yeah, and it's all nonsense to begin with, but also now there's 4 different degrees of nonsense.
Yeah, and it's I played games where you have multiple paths, and the interactions are a little bit different from the different characters' views. But no, they just did the same cutscene, again.
But it's
on
a different character
path.
making a face watching the cutscene happen from a different location.
Yeah, and it was just awkward. And like I was saying, just playing through the tutorial again, there's so many QuickTime events. I don't hate QuickTime events, but they shouldn't replace the gameplay or the
especially if you grew up playing Resident Evil 1 through 3 and now you're playing 6 and this is what you're doing. You're like, this is Resident Evil now. What are we doing?
Yeah, exactly. It's just oh man. So then the combat feels really arcadey. I think the earlier games have a little bit more heft to the enemies and stuff. It doesn't feel like they're just, I don't know,
I'll talk about how I think the gameplay works, but I feel like I agree with you. The enemies are a little papery, but before we get to that, we're gonna, because I do want to get into some positives, but I feel like we're on the train of what the hell happened here. Will, not your experience playing with somebody, the good times you might have had. What was your take to start us off on Resident Evil 6 as a Resident Evil title?
Resident Evil 6 had a very interesting appeal to me because I will say that it walked back a couple of my favorite mechanics in games like this. Resident Evil 4, the mysterious merchant popping up out of nowhere and saying, "Got something that might interest you." and he opens his cloak, and there's enough hardware in there to take on an entire army. Next thing you know, we get into 5, and I'm like, oh, cool, we're picking up money. We're going to have an upgrade system again. Wait, what the hell is this?
Right.
And you're just throwing money into a magic hole, and out pops your upgraded weapon. I mean, is there a magician's top hat sitting around or something?
Yeah, I missed the merchant, and I'm glad we get that back in 8, but we'll talk about the Duke when we get there.
I'm really hoping that if they decide to do Resident Evil 5 Remake, that they touch up on things like the atmosphere, and they definitely bring the merchant into play, because there's no reason that after the island was destroyed, he wouldn't pick up and pack off somewhere else.
Sure,
I don't know who this guy is, but he seems like he's in it for the cash, and he fully endorses putting down these monster apocalypses. But back on track here.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's talk about 6. So I assume you're leading towards the way the skill upgrade system is in there, where you can't do it until after a mission, and then by the time you have enough upgrades that might seem nice, that one campaign's over. Is that what you're getting at?
I'm getting into the fact that the weapons are unupgradable. You just find them lying around. They don't really feel like they've got oomph to them, and the skill system, I barely even noticed it, aside from things like the health and stamina upgrades. Like, Resident Evil 6, I very much agree, felt like an arcade game. The part that had the most appeal for me, though, was the all-star roster. Like, we get Leon, Sherry, and Chris all back, along with some side characters. And if I had to go in order of the ones I liked most, I'd have to go with saying Piers was my favorite guest character, followed by Jake, and then Helena. And Helena, she had her appeal, but she was just dry, I suppose.
Yeah.
Oh, and a fun fact. When you get to Ada's campaign, you do play solo, but later on, they decided to keep consistency, and then we get Agent, who basically seemed like discount Kirkland Hunk.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to talk about the cast here. Tony, how did you feel about our cast of characters here in 6?
It was okay. They've definitely dropped a lot of the plot that they kind of built up with it. Like, we haven't had Jake back. Like, they're like, let's just ignore this. And the big twist about him, like, was like, oh, okay. All right. I mean, that's fine. I don't mind that. These games get silly. They are, at their core, that cheesy action, as we've talked about.
By the way, there's not much to spoil. I mean, as much as I love Resident Evil, there's not much to spoil. The only game in our series here that we need to really watch spoilers on is going to be Requiem. So other than that, thank you. So other than that, fire away. Like, we can just talk about whatever. These things have been out forever.
That's fair. Yeah, so him being Wesker's son was like, okay, like, how are they going to build up from this? And then it's just never gone anywhere, which they have done. Like, I guess they're kind of building a story. Like, they hint at it again. Like, I'm not going to go into spoilers for 9. They do hint at a little bit of, but at the end of 8, you know, they have the BSA thing with the zombie, and it's like, interesting. Like, and I'm like, I want to know more, like, going on.
Mm-hmm.
But so now we have Jake. It's like, what are they doing? Like, they haven't brought it back, you know, at all.
Yeah. So I was actually going to bring up the cast to say that Resident Evil 6 introduces and brings back, you know, some side characters. And it brings back, of all people, Sherry, who's going to come into play later. And she was originally from Resident Evil 2. She's the little girl that Claire saves. And she's back with Jake, he's okay. I could, you know, take him or leave him. But in Resident Evil 6, we are introduced to who, in my opinion, might be the most forgettable character in Resident Evil history, in Piers Nivens. And I don't know if you guys agree with me on that. If there's someone I'm forgetting, he's just that much more forgettable. Maybe whoever dies in the opening of Code Veronica, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm going to interject here.
Yep.
I'm going to interject here. Don't you dare do my boy Piers dirty like that, man. Piers?
Tell me about Piers. What's up with Piers? Why you love him?
Piers had this kind of young but serious Nathan Drake thing going on, and he
Can't believe
serves
we
as sort
found
of
a
a
Piers
stabilizing
stan.
element. He has this sort of grounding element. Maybe I'm biased because he was the one I played as. My friend insisted on playing as Chris, and I honestly think it was just because she wanted to stare at his ass and biceps the whole game.
Same.
But
What?
that's on record, man. That's on record. Now, Piers sort of comes in out of nowhere, and we see Chris has hit his lowest point, and I feel like this is something that wasn't really touched up on enough. Like, they just sort of pop up and drag him out of a bar after
I think they did
his
Chris
mind's been
so
broken.
dirty after all the work they did on him in 5 with his depiction in 6. I feel like they did Chris so dirty in 6.
Well, the thing is, Chris has been through a lot, and I feel like hitting a low point is justifiable for him, but the repressed memory, the alcohol problem, I don't feel like it was fleshed out enough. Like, I can see him wanting to be on a leave of absence, not just rotting in a gutter in a European country. I think where they were was more or less intended to be probably Ukraine or Kiev. Actually, I think Kiev is a part of Ukraine, so yeah, that was the impression I got from it. Maybe it was somewhere in
Hey,
Russia
that's on
during the
record,
war.
man.
But anyways,
Well, I think this is our opportunity before we get on to the juiciness of the next section of our Resident Evil story, because I don't think there's too much more we need to say about 6. Other than I will say,
yeah, we can probably just
take away the Resident Evil of it. As an arcade style shooter, they do some really fun things that I actually found pretty impressive as far as mechanics for an arcade shooter that could come out from another company like Platinum or something like that. The fact that you could counter an attack by pressing the trigger at just the right time before a physical strike, and you'd get like a cinematic thing to follow up on that. I thought the shooting itself felt really fluid. The reloading and switching weapon mechanics were nice. I felt the way they handled the inventory and health system was really awful. So that's a negative on it. But playing the actual game moment to moment when you're in the middle of a crowd of zombies and everything, it actually feels fantastic. But it's just such a weird Resident Evil game.
I will definitely give you that one. It doesn't feel like a Resident Evil game. It definitely feels like it was one that was kind of just slapped together. Like I said before, it suffers an identity crisis, but some of the side characters were okay. The gameplay was an absolute blast. The plot was absolutely nuts. But
they're all nuts.
Yeah, one thing I did appreciate about the campaigns, each one had like this single moment where it just blows off the regular gameplay and switches over to something entirely different. And you get Chris in the Harrier, for instance, and then the fist fight with Usanat as Jake.
Oh, and we didn't even mention. I can't believe we got through Resident Evil 5. I didn't bring up this is where we get Wesker at full evil Superman, and we get the fact that Chris is stronger than a god and can punch through a boulder. I can't believe I didn't talk about this.
Hey, let's double back and talk about that, because
yeah, please.
You can't not talk about boulder punching when you mention Resident Evil 5.
Go for it, guys. You got something to say about boulder punching, Chris, Resident Evil 5, Wesker? Go for it.
Oh man, that is like one of the most iconic things that they have kept through, because as we'll talk more about Resident Evil 8 later,
exactly.
They do reference it, like, because Chris is a big character in 8 as well, and it's like he gets called a boulder punching asshole, and it's just that was like the best thing. I was like, oh my god, yes, because if anything, there's always the memes. We got the Jill sandwich and the boulder punching asshole, like all those cheesy one-liners everybody memeing about freaking Leon every time he's in a dangerous situation. Like he's got to have a notebook, But yeah, I digress.
Yeah, he kills Cloud and says, "That was your final fantasy."
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, and like. I'm one that's a little soft for like cheesy schlock like that. Like,
dude, I do a horror podcast.
I
I was born to love this shit. Like, it's all good.
Dude, I grew up in the era of Stallone, Schwarzenegger, and all those guys, and every time it was like, this guy's strapped to a rocket, and you're about to pull the trigger and send him a mile away to explode. You're fired. It's like, boom.
My favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger one-liner is in Predator. He's like sneaks into an enemy camp and he stabs a dude so hard with a knife that he gets like stuck into the wall, and he just says, "Stick around."
Oh man, or the Batman.
Oh yeah, all the Batman ones. Yeah.
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age.
Freeze. Oh man, classic. And you know what? I feel like that energy, that cheesy energy, is exactly what fueled the production of something like Resident Evil 6. I don't think without Schwarzenegger and all that ridiculousness, we don't get that. And I think 6 maybe needed to happen so that we have what we have as far as our memories of these characters. But yeah, either way, I feel like they did Chris dirty. If you have a buddy and you want to kill some things and just have like a fun couple hours here and there, grab Resident Evil 6. I'm sure it's $4 in every discount bin you can find in America these days. So, you can't really go wrong there. But as far as substance, you know what? That's a good transition. As far as substance, we have a lot of years that pass between... about 5 years later. Do you guys remember when they first revealed the trailer for Resident Evil 7? Do you have a memory of that? Because I was like, wow, that's Resident Evil? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, because it was like we had that pain from PT being canceled.
That's right. That's right. The PT era was about this, and we talked about this in our Silent Hill episode, and we got this like really visceral first-person, terrifying environment that was like this new, unexplored way to play a survival horror game that we hadn't seen executed in that current next generation that we were in, but then it was taken away from us. And then we hear a new Resident Evil's coming out. The last thing we had was 6, a bunch of terrible movies, and so we're expecting, like a big action blowout trailer with zombies flying out of helicopters and buildings falling over. And then we just get this dude sitting at a dinner table with this horrifying looking family.
Yeah. And I remember the demo, everybody like rightfully compared it to PT because there was so many little interactions.
It's impossible
you could do
not to in that era.
And the full game obviously didn't have as much of that, but the demo was incredible. And there was stuff that was released later I found out about. I remember the puppet finger. We were like, everybody's trying to figure it out. And it was this whole big thing. I went down a rabbit hole like a couple months ago.
No, tell us about, I actually don't know this. What's going on with the puppet finger? I never played the demo. I just got the game on release day.
Yeah, so the demo is a little bit different. There's a lot more supernatural elements, and like it's very similar to PT where you do a thing happens, kind of like different interactions. So they had a lot hidden in it, and then they released a couple updates, and there was this puppet, like I think it was a puppet finger. It was a finger that was like for some like a mannequin or a pumpkin or some. Nobody could figure out what to do with it, but then it was this huge internet collaboration that people figured out all these little tidbits and secrets that ended up unlocking like some alternate ending to the demo. And it was just like, I love those kind of big community events. Like, side note, like I used to play Destiny, and there would be these puzzles that would pop up. Somebody would notice like Morse code or something, and then they start translating. And I think those are the best thing in gaming because it brings the whole community together. Like, and it's just this big like chase to who can figure it out, and like people are contributing, and like I love it. It just, that little hope core element of life where you're like, yeah, people can work together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Will, before we dive into the meat of the matter, do you remember when you first saw a trailer for Resident Evil 7 or when you realized what it was going to be? What was your response to that?
I gotta look at the Resident Evil 7 trailer, and I think I remember seeing it and craning my neck a little bit thinking, what is this? And then I got a hold of the demo, and I'm investigating this cabin. I'm like, this is probably the creepiest, most disturbing thing I've seen in 10 years. Let's go!
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I never played the demo. I'm not even sure I was aware there was a demo now that you guys are telling me about it. I feel like I really missed something.
Oh, you did, man. Do you remember when you're skulking around in the lower parts of, I think it was the basement and the crawl-through spaces, where you find that, I think he was an investigative journalist.
The first VHS tape that you find?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the character you play as.
Oh, man. Dude, the return to finding items and walking through this interconnective area and using them like the VHS tape and then watching, and then you're in the tape. Oh, I can't express to the listeners and you guys how much, to me, I think Resident Evil 7 is an absolute pinnacle of the genre, in my opinion.
Let's put it this way. For the older generation, you remember when they came out with New Coke and then they brought back Coke Classic? Well, imagine the New Coke era lasted 10 years.
No, Crystal Pepsi was Resident Evil 6, and now we're back to Pepsi Classic.
This podcast is not sponsored by the Cola Corporation.
That's
But if you're listening, we're open.
yeah, no. If you want to sponsor us, Pepsi, we love you. You know, we're huge. We're huge corporate shills. Please give us your money. And Crystal Pepsi. What was that Family Guy bit? What if you're drinking a Pepsi and some guy comes at you with a knife? You won't be able to see him. Crystal Pepsi.
Investigating the spooky house out in the middle of nowhere, it was a complete and totally different feel because all the other Resident Evil games took place in either urban areas or developed regions. No, this is just this weird, creepy farmhouse out in the middle of nowhere. And when you get into the actual game itself, the sun's bearing down on you. You hear the bugs buzzing and creaking in the distance, and you're finding these disturbing effigies of body parts and animal parts hanging on bone chimes. Then you get into the house, and it's molded and moth-eaten, and there's such an eeriness to the quiet. But the creaking floorboards, the darkness, barely see your hand in front of your face, and next thing you know, Baker just pops out of nowhere, jumps you, and you feel like, oh crap, I remember this trauma. Mr. X. But worse.
I think we should get into it because I want to talk about. I know you're. I don't mean to interrupt you. It's just you got me so excited to talk about the Bakers, and to talk about Resident Evil 7. But first, I do want to say, last episode we talked about starting a band called Softlock, and I think our first single should be Bone Chimes for sure. Easy peasy. So in Resident Evil 7, we get a change to first person. It's much more focused on atmosphere, puzzle solving, and exploration as it used to be. Coke classic, as Will said. And instead of, a super-powered god like Wesker or, the Nemesis and just everything else that they've been escalating and building upon to make these big, crazy monsters, and especially in 6 with Dr. Simmons, you get, there's all these big, insane monsters. It was such a shock for us to sit down and see, and referring to the trailer again, that our villains are a bunch of creeps in the backwoods bayou, and that is the Baker family. And, oh boy, you have no idea what you're in for with these guys. So I'd love to hear your impression on the Bakers. Tony, can you kick us off?
Yeah. Oh, man. I like that they each have their own, feeling to them, they're family, and you see that dinner, and it's okay, and there's the deception with the grandma character that was
the grandma who just appears terrifying.
She's just fucking there being creepy, just sitting there. You're like, how the fuck did you get up these stairs? You're in a wheelchair, you bitch. This house ain't ADA compliant.
That's how I talk to most people in wheelchairs I meet too. So yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, you have the dad who's stalking you around, and he's creepy.
You're about to see something wonderful, boy.
Yeah, just grabs you, beats you up, throws you around, cuts the cop's head in half with a shovel. The mom is all buggy, and I was looking into it recently about that whole thing too, how she was really they had their own personality things before, and it kind of their mold abilities kind of mirrored that. You could see that she had that gardening area and stuff, so the bugs were kind of the progression of it from the mold, because mold is a parasitic pest kind of thing.
And we should mention that the family is being influenced by essentially a mold version of this virus that's sort of in the air and is affecting the Bakers and driving them to superhuman insanity, essentially.
Yeah.
As I recall from doing the deeper reading, it turns out that the megamycete mold was discovered originally in, I'm not even sure where in the heck they end up in Resident Evil 8, but it's revealed that it was instrumental in developing the progenitor virus, which is what the T and G viruses were built on by the Umbrella Corporation. And this is just a virus in its raw form. But here's the thing. It acts fundamentally different. It alters the mind, but preserves the personality just on an extremely radical level. And it also seems to have some form of a mind of its own. It's a collective consciousness. And that's just weird.
That is weird. And this one's for the nerds. We're talking mold viruses. We've got the G virus, which infected Sherry when she was 12, which is what Claire saves her from. She eventually got Again, this is all nonsense, so bear with me. She got an antidote, but it apparently caused problems that Sherry's still having to deal with. We're going to find out more about that down the road in the series, I believe. We've got the C virus, which is an evolution of the T virus, and the C virus is what's turning everyone into fucking arcade targets in Resident Evil 6. And I don't know what they call it in Resident Evil 7, but you said it. Will, what is it that's infecting the bakers in 7?
It's a mold that hails originally from a crypt in Europe, and it was loaded onto a ship as a means to transport it to the US or the Western world in general, so it can be researched and developed into disease treatments.
I'm going to call it the Jeremy virus. I have no, or whatever, the K virus. We'll just call it that.
The mold is transported across the world, and the ship finds itself crashed somewhere near the southern coast of the United States of America, the continent, I mean. And then it ends up in Louisiana in the form of an experimental subject whose name escapes me, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's
and
yeah.
This is where she settles in.
Oh,
with the Baker
Eveline.
family.
Oh, I have it right here. It's a living bioweapon called Eveline that is inflicting the Bakers with essentially a mold coming off of her, which gross.
Yeah.
The thing about her is it's kind of the same thing that we discussed in the Homelander comic book episode. She's got the mind of a child, but the raw power she exudes and the aggression she has means that she can never have that feeling of being loved and protected, and that's all she wants. But by sheer consequence of not understanding the consequences of her temper, she just never gets that, and it just leads to her destruction, which in its own way is tragic. But the fact is, we can't have somebody running around turning people into mold ghouls like the Baker family. I mean, what is this, a Black Friday sale?
Sorry, I'm just writing down. I'm writing down mold ghouls for our set list for Softlock. Will, did you have any other thoughts on essentially the Bakers, the setting, or anything else before we talk about what the game did as we move on to 8?
What the game did was made people angry that it was too scary for them to finish.
Oh, that's fair. I definitely know some people who were not able to finish it because they got too scared, and that's something we talked about in Silent Hill. I wasn't able to complete Silent Hill 2 Remake as a 35-year-old adult because I got too scared, and that is effective writing.
Damn right. But here's the thing. Every time it scared the living hell out of me, I just felt, this is horrible and it's evil. Give me more. And I just kept on going. And eventually I got to the end of the chaos, and I absolutely loved every single second of it. Ethan, I'm always put off by dealing with a new character, but I learned a while back to treat a new character like meeting any new person. Okay, I don't know who this is, but I'll give him a shot. And by the end of the game, I wanted this man to succeed because he's just an everyman from the middle of nowhere, and he's just trying to find his wife.
So that's a great transition. Respect. I wanted to ask you, Tony, how you felt about, we got Ethan and Mia being introduced, how you felt about the return of Chris. We can talk about Zoe. There's not much there in Joe Baker, but if you think about Ethan, Mia, how do you feel about our new cast that was introduced in this new era of Resident Evil?
I think they did a good job because, we actually remember the characters. We to varying extent, we give a shit about the characters. I thought Ethan was a good kind of reset. It wasn't a hard reboot. They didn't
he's kind of like new
stuff.
He's like new Chris. He's just like a guy.
Yeah. He just happened into this situation, and he steps up to the plate, and he fucking knocks it out.
It kind of reminds me of James from Silent Hill 2, just appeared in this. But yeah.
Yeah, I think he's a pretty fun guy.
He's measured, he's ordinary. He isn't overly heroic like Chris or overly idealistic like Leon, but he's here because he cares about his family and he will get them back. And he has so much as a glimmer of hope that his missing wife can be found. And like you said, that's very much a James Sunderland quality, but the difference is he doesn't have any tragic burdens or weird origins. No, he thinks his wife is alive and he wants to save her, and he's willing to go up against the powerful and intimidating Jack and the utterly disturbing human bug nest that is... Hell, what was the mom's name?
Oh, I can't remember. Dude gets what limb gets cut off of him in the beginning of the game, and he keeps on trucking and doesn't go with stopping? I don't know.
his hand
Yeah, he loses it like immediately.
by his own wife.
Yeah, which is nuts. I would have left. I don't know. So Ethan's got some determination there. I'd have been like, okay, she made her choice. Bye.
Honey, if you were trying to make a point, I appreciate you not cutting off the dominant hand. But fun fact, if you play things wrong in the first area where Jack's chasing you around, did you know you can actually use your foot too?
I did not,
know that.
What do you mean?
Yeah. If you're running around in the house and he actually manages to get a hold of you at the right point, he'll crash through the wall and he'll grab you, he'll cut your damn leg off and make you crawl to him, and he'll taunt you with a bottle of what the Indomitable Markiplier refers to as goop juice. He'll just sit a bottle in front of you and say, come on, come get the bottle, boy. You want your foot back,
God,
don't you?
you know what? Now that you say
have
that,
to
I
drag
think I
yourself
think
to
I
him?
did that. Now that you say that, because it's been since it's been almost 10 years since that game came out. I think I actually did that. That's crazy. That's awesome.
Yep. You reattach your foot and pour the goo all over
Yes,
it,
I
and that's when you get the idea.
absolutely did that. Yeah, I was like, this guy's lost 2 limbs now. Yeah.
And you know what? He's still walking and still punching. So Ethan Winters is a certified badass. Congratulations.
So I've never played 8. You know what? Actually, we'll talk about when we get to 8. I think we've gushed enough about 7. I think we can all agree if you haven't played it, you really gotta. And sorry.
One more thing.
Yeah.
I want to say about 8. I think 8 has like hands down the best DLC of the series.
Oh well, we're about to
Like-
talk about it.
Okay.
Well,
Or not
wait,
8,
oh,
I mean
wait, do you
7.
mean 7?
7. I meant 7 has
Okay.
the best DLC. What is it?
No,
Is
please,
it?
we have End of Zoe. No, you talk about the DLC, please.
he's talking about
Yeah.
it, Zoe.
Well, like you do have Not a Hero, I believe it was, where you
Yes,
get to play as
that's the
Chris,
Chris
and you get to deal
DLC.
with the brother. But then End of Zoe, I want a full fucking game about what is his name?
Joe Baker.
The brother, is that Joe? I couldn't remember.
So
No,
Joe
but
Baker.
yeah.
So the End of Zoe is a side story about a member of the Baker family who was not affected by Eveline's influence and it's saved eventually by Ethan, or was saved by the brother Joe Baker, who is a hermit who lives nearby the Baker family.
Yeah, and you're just this fucking badass swamp man punching the BOWs to death, and he doesn't like, he gets spears, like makeshift spears and explosives that he makes himself. Like, you get to be a hillbilly just murdering everything, and then near the end you get like a power glove, and then like you get to beat the hell out of his monster brother who somehow survived and became like this swamp creature thing. And it's just the best thing. I want a full game where I just run around punching zombies and shit. Like, I
Hell
was like,
yeah.
oh my god, they need a spin-off game that's just Joe. Oh, you got a BOW problem?
So
I'll
I
handle it.
I have a feeling that down the road, some of these characters are going to come back. I feel like Ethan. I don't know if I want to spoil what happens to Mia or not, but even if that's real, we don't know. But Mia may or may not be around, but it'd be cool if we saw Zoe and especially Joe again. I think that Joe would be a great surprise character to return in the future, for sure.
I would like to toss out a line that I think should be in there during your pro-Joe rant. Hey, how did I get it for a living? You just knock him in the head with a song.
Sorry, I'm writing down pro Joe for our set list.
It's got basically the chorus has to go down in there's the monster, then the zombie, then the Mr. X. What do? Punch him.
Great lyrics,
But,
man.
Yeah.
Okay.
End of Zoe
yeah.
End of Zoe feels like they had a bunch of the budget left, and they decided, you know what, screw it, let's just have some fun here. And that I did want to double back and mention Zoe because she is instrumental in the plot to 7 in her own way, and she comes to a pivotal decision for Ethan, but she also demonstrates she's instrumental in proving that Ethan Winters is just plain a good guy that was thrown into a bad situation. And you know what? He Leon'd up and kicked some teeth in, and he did it damn well.
Let's continue our love of Ethan Winters, and let's just move on to Resident Evil 8. Released in 2021, this was directed by, and this is always fun because it's different every time, Moremasa Sato, and the producers of the game were, oh good, a word I've never seen before, Tsuyoshi Kanda, and Peter Fabiano. Well, they made that easy for me. and Masachika Kawada. Okay, well, we're back at it. It is the 8th mainline title, of course. It continues the adventures of Ethan Winters, but does not exactly continue the style of gameplay from 7 exactly. It is still first person. They eventually introduce a third person mode, which I never tried. I still have no idea what Ethan Winters looks like because I never looked it up. A large, interconnected, but still intimately small property. You are now in multiple locations across sort of an environment that's very reminiscent of Resident Evil 4. Big castle grounds that includes the castle itself. It includes a lot more action-oriented gameplay while still continuing the tradition of puzzles, although a little lighter on that, but goes back to traditional Resident Evil form by reintroducing big, wacky villains, including... What else can we say? We'll get to her. Lady Demetrisk. Apparently, I'm not saying that right, but you guys can correct me later.
Yeah,
and
the proper way to say it.
Yes, please.
The proper way to say it is Dami Mommy.
Yes. So Tony, kick us off. Just talk us when I talk about Resident Evil 8, Dami Mommy and all. What comes to mind?
I mean, the first thing is obviously Dami Mommy. I love that they kind of harken back to the Universal monsters with each of the big houses. Like, you have the werewolves attacking the city and pillaging. You have the house of the castle with the vampires and Lady D being kind of like Dracula. You have what's his name? Heisenberg, who's like kind of the Frankenstein-y one, like his specialty. They have like mechanical additions and stuff.
He's kind of like an evil Van Helsing at some point too. Like he's weird like that.
Yeah.
He's got the Helsing mystique, but Heisenberg had very much the appeal of Dr. Frankenstein, specifically the scientist, where he just used the magnetism, the machinery, and the physics against you. And you gotta love the man's stage charm. Like, he definitely had a presence that just made you think, I know I gotta kill this guy, but I really don't want to.
Also,
just so
very
fun.
Weirdly, design-wise, weirdly reminiscent of Arden from Final Fantasy 15, but that is a deep cut for the nerds listening.
Yes, I can see it.
I'm so happy you guys know what I meant. So let's start with Will. I think we started with Tony last time. What was your because once again I got all these day one, plowed through them. What was your experience with Resident Evil 8, Will?
Introduced to Resident Evil 8, I was really excited to dive into Ethan's story again because I get really invested in characters, especially the likable ones. And Ethan,
I hate likable characters. I don't get that.
Well, he settled in. He got to start a family. He got his wife back, and we get a few glimmers of what he's been up to in the several years that passed. You get the impression, I think, that 3 years has passed, and Rose was only just born recently, and he's received military training. He's been specifically monitored by the government because of what he went through, and everybody else that went through crap like that either had serious issues or they brought something back with them, and it wasn't a bobblehead from the gift shop. And as we get into the game, we're pretty much immediately introduced to all the new monsters, and this new virus has gone full on Helsing, and I absolutely loved it. Like, we weren't dealing with zombies so much as we were dealing with Victorian-era horrors, and you get into the tragedy almost immediately when you jump into that church and all those people, nobody makes it, and it's just so tragic, but at the same time, you're there to save anyone you can, but you're there for your kid. And then we're surrounded by monsters, we're having to deal with these things, and the bell tolls Resident Evil 4 style, and we get introduced to Alcina Dimitrescu, Carl Heisenberg, Salvatore Moreau, and Donna Beneviento. Yes, I looked those up.
God, did you hear how smooth he said all those names?
Way to go. I forgot about the dollhouse. It's definitely one of the best parts of the game.
The dollhouse freaked me out so much so that when I played the game on live stream, all my friends that were in the background just sort of doing fun commentary muted themselves and left me to twist in the wind on my own in the basement. Fuckers. But you know what? I'm glad they did, because holy crap, that was sick. And it was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we God, and then we can talk about that scene with the baby in 8, the terrifying.
I'm glad that thing never caught me.
Yeah, me too. It never got me, but Tony, what was your experience when you picked up RE8?
So I had it for like I want to say about a year after it released before I finally got around to playing it. And I got it on sale like pretty early when I had or one of those lucky early sales. And I was like, okay, it's time to bite. And then I played 7 and then jumped in. I played the remakes of 2 and 3 and then jumped into 8. So I had a little bit of a breather between. And I also live streamed it. I had such a good time with it that year for my Christmas stream, we played, I got the Infinite Grenade Launcher, and we played that game with just Christmas music while I was blowing everything away with the Infinite Grenade Launcher.
I never got any of the fun weapons in these games. I usually just, I play the story, and then I don't usually go back, but part of me wishes I'd invest in some of these wacky things just to do stuff like that.
It's a pretty easy one to get, because it was you just had to get the fully upgraded grenade launcher in the base game, and then you could buy it from the point store.
Oh, and I should mention one more thing I forgot about 5, which makes me sound unorganized. This continued the tradition of Mercenaries mode, which a lot of people really enjoyed Mercenaries in 5. That was that kind of spawned the Revelations games and certain things like that. And then 6 is pretty much Mercenaries the whole game. But then in 7, it is not included, but it makes up for it in substance of story and gameplay. But in 8, we get Mercenaries added again eventually. And did either of you invest into the Mercenaries mode in 8? Because it's surprisingly solid.
I have not done 8's mercenary mode really. I did 4 a lot. Yeah, I didn't even know that they had a mercenary mode.
Oh, yeah. 8. Well, in the 4 remake, that's my most. But yeah, they added one to 8, and it's actually really good. And I've never tried the game in third person. They added a third person mode as well, but I love the look of it. The game's gorgeous, regardless, the environments, the way it's built. I think it's a really solid title, and I like that instead of we get back to the traditional RE aesthetic of zombies and mansions and everything in Requiem, which we'll get to, but I'm really happy they took a diversion that wasn't like 6, where it's like, here's a diversion where we're going to become a Schwarzenegger movie. Here's a diversion where you get vampires and werewolves real quick. And I'm like, okay, I'm here for it.
Yeah, and it felt kind of like a merger of the ideals of the classic horror as well as the action from Resident Evil 4. Like they kind of
not even
like
just
that kind of callback to 4.
Well, another big callback to 4 that I want to shout out that I know you guys appreciate it as much as I do is the reintroduction of a merchant in the Duke who every time I walked into a room in 8 and found the Duke, it was like it was so comforting. I just love that guy. He was so cool.
He makes a reference to the other merchant and how he owes him money or something like that too. One of his throwaway lines that he says when you're walking into the room.
Will, it sounds like you got something you want to say about all this. I know I've been hoarding.
Something just a friend of mine used to say. That was the reference line you're referring to. And as for the Mercenaries, I have exactly one thing that I need to say to make you want to play it. You can play as Dimitrescu.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah,
and Heisenberg,
I'd recently found out that they had released I think I just missed that update, and I was like, oh, well, shit, now I need to do that because I love Mercenaries. I think it's one of the most fun ways because it's like you get that arcade element with the characters without sacrificing the game to the arcade element.
Yeah, it's like when it came to 6, like I said, I loved playing 6, but I didn't love that Resident Evil 6 was the whole title. I wish that there was a way I could play what that game is, but have a whole story mode that was much, much better. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And think here.
Yeah.
Go buy Left 4 Dead, Ace Combat, and Outlast, and you're all set.
I think that's what makes something like the Resident Evil 4 remake such an incredible product, is because not only is that single-player campaign, it's like 20-something chapters that are all beefy and diverse. The gameplay is so smooth. It feels fantastic. It's challenging. It's diverse. There are collectibles. There are secrets. There's things to unlock. There's upgradables. But then also...
It feels so satisfying.
Then also there's this beefy Mercenaries mode when you don't just want to go back and retread story moments or explore an environment where you're just like, I want to live in this moment with these mechanics and make things die. And they give you that in 8 in a really satisfying and diverse way by having multiple characters, like in, say, the Mercenary, or like in Revelations or in RE5 Mercenaries, and I really appreciate that they added that.
Well, the Mercenaries mode was always just mindless fun. And you know what? After you deal with the story, the damsel, and Ashley screaming in your ear for 10 hours of gameplay, you really just want to go and shoot things. And I really like they introduced characters that you can play as from across the series, including Hunk and Krauser in the original. And I liked that they brought back all the characters that you could play as in the remake, especially with things like the unique mutated arms mechanic of Krauser, the superhuman strength of Wesker, and the what was the other one? Oh, right. The insta-kill mechanic on Hunk. That instantly made me love the guy when I shot Dr. Salvador in the face 4 times, and then pop! He's done.
So
Sucker!
The one thing I will say about Resident Evil 8 is I think for my money, and I would love to hear if you guys have another example, and I'm not including the light gun shooters, is that it probably had the easiest bosses in franchise history. I don't know if you agree or not.
Yeah, they feel interactive and stuff. And like I know a lot of people complain about the bosses in the games because it's like such a drastic difference of like
I'll be honest, it's my least favorite part of the original trilogy. I hate bosses in those games.
That's a very common like feeling I've been hearing people as they've been talking about the series because as we're going to talk about eventually 9 is very much a love letter to the past games.
I love the bosses in 9. I love everything
focuses.
about 9.
But yeah, they were talking about how generally in the series that's been one of the weak points is the boss fights always feel just so different, like pacing and difficulty wise, and I could see that. I did enjoy the bosses. It made me sad, like Lady Dimitrescu.
Dimitrescu. Will's our expert. How do you say it, Will? Dami Mommy. You know what? She's Dami Mommy.
Dimitrescu. And honestly, she's not my type.
Well, you're insane.
Her daughter, though.
I was just actually about to mention them. So the bosses, the main one we're thinking of. So we've got our main bosses here: Dimitrescu, Heisenberg, our buddy the Duke, and the characters I haven't shouted out are the 3 lovely daughters: Bella, Cassandra, and Daniela.
The best part about the 3 of them is, as much as they entertain me, they also irritate me because they wouldn't get their freaking hands off me. Probably the most morbidly satisfying part of dealing with Dimitrescu and her 3 daughters is definitely as she's walking around sauntering, you can hear her big ass footsteps just clacking through the halls, and suddenly she's thinking, where are they? They should be done cleaning up this pest bite. And then you just hear the rage in her voice because you just shoved a shotgun directly into her ego and pulled the trigger when she finds out that her precious little Supergirls weren't enough to take you down. And as you just pick them apart, she's just so furious by the end, like a mother should be, but this isn't like a sibling and parent relationship. This is her ego, and when you finally shove a blade into her chest, don't say it, and throw her off that clock tower, you're like, so this is the chick the internet lost her mind over.
Sorry, I was just writing down the daughters of Dimitrescu for our set list.
We need a pipe organ on that one.
Well, gosh, I can't believe we're coming close to the end of part 2 here, guys. But do we have any final thoughts on the legacy of Resident Evil 8 as we move into? We're going to take a step back. We're going to talk about the big offshoots. So in part 3, which is going to be our finale, we're going to bring up Code Veronica. We're going to bring up Dead Aim, Outbreak. Revelations. We're going to bring up all the offshoots, all the weird things. Then we're going to talk about the current belle of the ball in the gaming scene, which is the really, really solid Resident Evil 9. And I can't wait to talk to you guys about it. And it's so happy that my homework for this week is beating that game, because what else can you ask for? What an opportunity. But do we have any thoughts on the transition from Resident Evil 8 to 9 before we get into part 3, gentlemen?
I feel like it was it does get some flack from the general fans as not being as good as 7, and I can see where they're coming from, but I also feel like it was kind of that good pullback to like classic Resident Evil feel so that they could continue.
We got those
with
classic
RE9
villains again, and those big weird settings, and yeah.
So yeah, I was a fan. I had a really good time with it. So
me too. I found it very enjoyable. I blasted right through it. It's not, like in my top 3 probably for the entire series, but I enjoyed every minute of it, and will give it a thumbs up myself. Will, any final thoughts on Resident Evil 8?
Well, Resident Evil 7 had the absolute terror factor, and it also had a lot of unexpected twists, including where you beat Jack Baker to death with his own car. And
Yeah.
I heard that a lot of people didn't get this, but did you know that if you screw up starting up that car and turning it against him, he'll turn its ass on you?
I
I did not.
did.
Oh, wait.
I don't know. I can't remember if he did that or not. You reminded me he cut my foot off. I don't know what I remember anymore.
Oh yeah, I did make a joke on 7 that 8 is the part that it's like referencing about Ethan being a pretty fun guy because
Oh, 'cause of the fungus.
It's revealed that he's been mold this whole time. That he died at the beginning
I forgot
of 7, and yeah, I'm funny.
I forgot that.
Which explained a lot. Like, you always chalk it to plot armor, but it was a fun twist revealing that that's actually how he was so resilient.
Yeah.
That he was actually a mold
Yeah.
that managed to have
Well,
his consciousness
I'm glad they
endure.
explained it, and not just that the company that makes that first aid spray is essentially God. Yeah.
Actually, it wasn't the first aid spray. It was, I think, a distilled form of the megamycete mold that was used, and that's why it took regenerative capabilities. I didn't even know what you said.
I called you a nerd, but I just screwed around.
I'm a lore nerd and I'm a backstory nerd. I will fully admit that.
No,
But
that's why
anyway,
that's why we do the show, dude. I'm hosting a Resident Evil series. I'm a huge nerd.
Well, hey, I respect nerds. They run half the world nowadays. But
Fair.
the fact is, as far as 8 goes, it was a fun game. It was really divergent, but I will say, as far as 7 goes, I think I did like it better simply for the fact that it was sold as a horror game, and it terrified me in all the right ways. But you know what? 8 was just so much fun, and I will say, if they decide to go with the 7 or 8 formula in the Resident Evil 10 installment, I'll be here for it. And it sounds like with 9, they did the perfect combination of the two.
Oh, buddy. Yeah, Resident Evil 9 is, let's say, I mentioned 3 forms of Resident Evil. Let's just call them Phase 1, 2, and 3, the classic, the RE4 style, and the RE7 style. And 9 is like this perfect marriage of 4 and 7. It's so cool.
Sweet. I am very much looking forward to it. I'm going to pick it up whenever I can. Hopefully before we do the next episode so I can at least have some insights. But the only thing you need to tell me is Leon's there.
Yeah.
Leon's there, and he's kicking ass, man. After all the zombies he suplexed and helicopters he jumped out of in 6, he is not taking any crap for the zombies on the ground in 9. Not even a little.
That's one thing that I appreciated in the CG movies. I think it was Damnation. Yeah. They sent him off on a mission in a foreign country that's got VOW problems, and you know what? I did appreciate that, okay, they didn't just say, here's your jacket and your pea shooter and 1 spare mag of ammo. Have fun. No, they gave him a freaking tactical assault rifle and some combat gear, because they knew, okay, wherever this guy goes, there's trouble, so let's gear him up for it.
And 9 starts off with a Magnum.
Yep. Which I believe is a Resident Evil 2 callback, essentially, but way upgraded.
Then I'm pretty sure Leon shows up with 2 magnums.
And on that off-color
record too.
And on that off-color blue comedy joke, we say goodbye, gentlemen.
You really want to end on that note?
If you got a better one, go for it. But no, first we're gonna do some plugs. I was gonna say we're gonna do some plugs, but that's also a really terrible transition with what you just said. Tony, where can the people find you and your work? Tell them what you do. Tell them who you are. Let them know.
I am a nerd all over the internet. My socials, you can generally find me on like Blue Sky, being pretty active under McPatches_3D, as well as on Twitch.tv. I am on a hiatus right now, but I'll be back eventually, and dipping into other content creation such as this podcast. So you'll see me around.
Excellent, thank you. And Will, let the people know what you're about, where you are, and I guess your favorite kind of soup. I have no idea. Tell them whatever you want.
Well, I'm about 5'10", and you can find me on YouTube at Alaskan Ghost. And we're probably going to be starting up a project series of, I won't tell you what kind because it's a surprise. And whenever I can, I'll be doing live streams or recorded episodes, not sure which yet, of Resident Evil 9 and Pragmata as soon as I can pick the games up.
I want to try that thing.
Yes.
Oh, man.
And as soon as as soon as the episodes are up, if you'd like to check them out, I'd be very much appreciative.
Excellent. And I am a terrible lawyer who guarantees to put you in debt. No, I'm kidding. I'm a voice actor. I do this podcast. I'm Discount Dracula on the Halloween Horror Hour. I also read audiobooks for Audible. You can find my work under my name, George Brandenburg. I personally recommend Writhe by Erica Summers and H.M. Wall. Super appreciate you guys joining us. I can't wait to come back for what is, I can't believe it, it's the conclusion of our Resident Evil series when we come back for part 3. Stay tuned for everything we have and check out the Halloween Horror Hour on Tubi, Plex, the Roku channel, and of course on YouTube. Thanks for joining me today, guys.
Thanks for having me.
It's been my pleasure, George. Thank you.
Yep, have a great day.